Hi everyone, welcome to this evening's webinar. We're going to talk about GCSE and A-level revision hints and tips, really. Before we start, we'd just like to do a quick poll to find out how what our audience is. So if you can let us know, are you an educator, a parent or carer, or a student? And remember to tick the one that is most relevant to you. So it might be a parent and an educator, but which one is this going to be most relevant to you? So while you are all voting on that, I'm going to give you a little rundown of what we're going to talk about tonight. So we'll look at an overview of GCSE and A-levels, why it's important to revise. We're going to look at the forgetting curve and why it's important to keep, revising in small bursts. We'll look at metacognition, and I'll explain what that is a little bit later. I've got you some real revision fun games and techniques that I hope that you will enjoy. We'll look at some techniques for questions before how the BDA can help. And Nikki has mentioned quite a lot already, but what I want to do is I want to just go through some of the things that I would like to remind you of. Because it's not just about today, it's not just about this evening, it's about extending that hand to everybody to say that we're always here to help. We are a charity and we do have some free advice on the helplines and emails and social media. So Claudia, have we got the poll results just yet? Oh, brilliant. So we've got 34% as educator, 62% as a parent or carer, and 5% as students. So I hope you will all go away with some ideas after today. So we'll just go through an overview of GCSE's certificate, which is called the General Certificate of Secondary Education. That's what the GCSE stands for, and A-levels. Just to let you know about myself, I used to work in a secondary school before I worked for the British Dyslexia Association, and I supported students from year 7 to year 11. And during that time, I did an awful lot of support during the exam season. And so I'm a trained scribe and invigilator and facilitator for the exams. So that's where my expertise is. Not so much in A-levels, but what you can do is adapt anything that I'm going to show you tonight into what you can do for your A-level studies as well. But I want you to just have a look at this cartoon. So whatever your opinion is, GCSEs and other exams are compulsory for all state schools. GCSEs are administered by secondary schools in England to children in year 11, and they're intended to bring clarity and consistency to exams. They are the minimum requirement and a barrier to entry for most roles and university courses. GCSEs provide you with an essential foundation in a range of subjects, and they can determine which sixth form you go to as well. The qualifications that you take next could be used to assess the eligibility for a university course, for example. The GCSE results might limit the universities you can apply to and can affect the career that you end up doing. Saying that, I do understand how difficult it is for dyslexic individuals to get through their GCSE exams, which is why it's important to, I have a personal opinion, but I can't really impose that on you. But this cartoon kind of it tells us that we need to make sure and that we understand that not every exam is going to fit every individual. And we need to take that into account, regardless of what your opinions are of exams. We still need to get through them, unfortunately. But it doesn't determine what kind of person you are. It doesn't measure how kind you are. It doesn't measure how sporty you are. It doesn't measure how fantastic you are as a person. So I just need you to remember that as well. So there's an awful lot of exams for year 11 students to go through. And my heart goes out to anybody that is in year 11. I've got two children, two teenagers, and they've both gone through them. And it is a very, very stressful time. And if you look at the number of papers that they have to sit, it's no wonder that it does cause quite a lot of stress. Um, and so for us, we need to have that understanding about how stressful it is for our teenagers to go through. So in England and Wales, maths, English and science are the core subjects that everybody must take at GCSE. English language is compulsory in all schools, and so is English literature in the majority of schools in England, but there are exceptions. So make sure that you check. GCSEs are not compulsory for all schools, but they are a common qualification taken by students in the UK. With regards to A levels, students take up to 3 subjects, but you can actually take up to 5. All subjects are different and have different numbers of papers, and so it's really difficult to put it all onto one table. So with regards to A levels, yes, it cranks up the intensity, but there are much less of them. So, some teenagers that I've worked with, it's like, why should I revise? What is the point of it? Well, if we don't have that frequent review, the information that we're learning will just be forgotten in an hour sometimes. And it's very similar. My children used to come home from school and I'd say, "What have you done today? What have you learned today?" And very often they'll just say, "I don't know," because it's gone. And so this forgetting curve was pioneered by someone called Herman Ebbinghaus in 1885. Ebbinghaus, I think he's called. And he discovered that without that frequent review of that information, we will forget at least half of what we've learned within the hour. And so it's really important to make sure that you continue to revisit this information that you need to learn so that you're able to find it in your filing cabinet of knowledge as easily as possible. And with dyslexics, it's difficult sometimes to find it in that filing cabinet of knowledge. But if we try and use some kind of visuals or something practical or something that's pictorial, then we're more likely as the dyslexic be able to remember that. And so if we overlearn and go to information that is harder to remember and make it multisensory in a fun way or pictorial, then more likely then to be able to remember it at the crucial time when we are in the exam. So it's important to have a timetable. This is, we are coming up to exam season now, and if you are in year 10 and looking for your exams for next year, then you've got a perfect time to be able to make a really long plan. But if you are just taking up your exams in the next couple of months, you've got a shorter period of time to be able to plan. But it's still important to be able to plan and pick out those most important things that you need to remember. It can be daunting to know how to begin. And a really good revision timetable will break the whole process down into manageable bite-sized pieces. And for many learners, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the sheer size of the task. And if you give in at this point, so devising the timetable is really important part of that strategy. And I've put this quote here: how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's just one bite at a time. And it's important to know that it is just one tiny bite at a time, which is, that's why the bite size phrase is so popular. So to make sure that the time slots, you need to make sure that they are short and realistic. It's a lot easier to remember something if you work hard for 15 minutes rather than for 2 hours and you learn very little. So the average time span, attention span for us is around about 15 to 20 minutes. And then once you've engaged in something for 15 to 20 minutes and you've done something that is realistic and tangible, Go away, do something different, clear your mind, come back to it, and do another bite size. And so that's what I would recommend, especially with our dyslexic learners. So short, frequent bursts of learning activity is the key to success here. So we needed to plan ahead. So when we think of making a revision plan, we've got these 5 steps to consider. So color code each subject. And it's really, color coding is really important for dyslexic learners as well, so that they can make that association with the color. List the topics within that subject. So it might be English, geography, science, and then the topics within that subject. So you've got an idea of how many topics that you've got to learn. And grade each topic in its difficulty. 1 being easy and hard in 5 is 5. And so you can understand what kind of range, if you've got lots of easy topics that you already know, and maybe a few more of the harder subjects, then you know that you need to have more of the bite-sized revision in the harder topics rather than the easy topics. But don't forget those easy topics, and it might just need that quick revision, might only be necessary. And so once you've graded everything, plot the exam dates in your planner, and then you need to start working backwards. So then start to plot the subjects by topic into your planner. So you might have some cue cards for topic 1, another set of cue cards for topic 2, and another set of cue cards for topic 3. If you find that topic 3 is a really hard topic, then plan that, put that into your planner 3 times instead of 1, if that makes sense. Remember as well to consider any of your ongoing commitments as well. So if you've got horse riding, or if you've got swimming, or if you need to take care of Gran and you need to go and do some shopping for her, make sure that all of those are planned in as well, because it's really important that it doesn't completely take over your whole life, because that's when it starts to get stressful. Think about what is the best time of day for you to work. Okay, do you work better in the morning and you prefer to do a practical topic in the afternoon, a practical activity, or is it the other way around? Which one is easiest for you? Remember to include rest breaks. It's really important, and we'll go through about in a little bit about how to look after yourself during the run up to your exams, because what you don't want to do is burn out just before you get to your exam, because then that's not going to be conducive to getting a good mark. So remember to include these rest breaks as well. So when we think about metacognition and that positive mindset, we need to think about making sure that you are in the right state of mind on the run up to your exams. And it might be that you're in year 10 and you've got all of like 18 months maybe until you go to sit your exams, or a little bit less. Or it might be that you are one of these people who cram in the last few months. But metacognition is thinking about thinking and being conscious of how you are learning. And it's never too early and it's never too late to encourage students to understand their own metacognition. So what we talk about with that is talk about what you know before you listen to a topic or learn about a topic, what you know or what you are learning during learning that topic, and how they link together. And then what are you learning after you've learned something new? How does that link in with something that you know from your wider knowledge of the world? And it's about making sure that you are understanding, well, I got to that answer because the week before we'd already learned about something in English or science. Okay. And so it's understanding how you're learning and why you're learning it and how they all link together. If you feel that you are you are still learning, it's important with those people that are around you and in your support groups as well, that you use the correct language with each other. Celebrate the smallest achievements. If you're making mistakes, it's okay. It's part of the learning process. And if you've ever listened to Carol Dweck or read a book, she talks about this fixed mindset and growth mindset, and the power of not yet. So if you don't know something, it's not because you don't know it, it's because you don't know it yet, or it's not completely automatic yet. Okay. And the more you try and practice, I never used to say practice makes perfect. Practice makes progress. And the more that you progress, the more that you can achieve. And it's really important to make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you're not going to learn how you got it wrong or how did you get it right. Okay, so all of this metacognition, understanding the power of not yet, it's all connected. And we all need to be able to sit back and accept failure to a certain degree, because those failures can put you on the right path to becoming successful. And so it's how you deal with those failures. If you are a fixed mindset, your intelligence is quite static. You avoid those challenges. You tell yourself that it's just too hard. I'm not even going to try it. If you get a reward, you kind of expect it without any having to have any effort put in there. You ignore that feedback, whether it's positive or negative. Remember that negative feedback can really put you on the right track to becoming successful. And you're kind of threatened by others and by the success of others. So if you see somebody else becoming, achieving something because they've worked hard, you don't celebrate that, you envy it, and you wish it could be you. What we need to do is we need to turn that up on its head. We need to understand that intelligence can be developed. And this is what school and learning is all about. So you embrace those challenges, even if you can't do it yet. Understanding that you can train your brain. You know, the brain is a fantastic organ, and we can change our brain. We can make them. It's called plasticity, and so we can influence it to become much more more successful for us. Excuse me. Effort is a path to mastery. So if you can master something, you've taken a long, long path. You know, if we think about something like Kung Fu, for example, you don't start off on a black belt. You can't do everything straight away. You have a long, long path and lots of different belts to get through before you're a black belt and a master. And that's the same with learning. You have to go through all of these different levels. If you have a growth mindset, you welcome feedback to understand how you can get from not yet to congratulations, you've achieved it. And you find that inspiration by somebody else being really successful. And so it's really important to have this growth mindset. And it's not just for our individuals, but for those people that are around our students, to have the correct language, to develop that growth mindset as well. And it's just pointing out the simplest little things. It might be, oh, you couldn't do that yesterday, but you can now. That's amazing. Or you've put a lot of effort into that. Really well done. You know, it's more effort than you did last week or the year before. And so it improves this self-belief of our individuals, of our students, and giving them that hope of that goal achievement. And it's important for their mindset, their self-esteem, and their mental health. Talking about mental health, it's really important to look after yourselves as well when you are studying for exams. I did say before, you know, there's a huge number of papers that GCSE and A-level students have to go through. And so it's important to know what to do to be able to look after yourself. So take breaks. And I don't mean really long breaks, like a week. I mean, you know, just maybe a half an hour break in between some different activities. Get moving. During that break, you know, go for a quick walk to the shop, go and buy a pint of milk for mum, or, you know, just have a game of footy or basketball or something, just to, you know, get your brain away from that. Allow for joy. Make sure that it's not just all about exams and revision. You have to have some kind of joy. So go and see your friends, go and see your family, nieces and nephews, cousins, whatever it is that make help you to be happy and make you laugh. Hydrate is really important. You need to look after yourselves physically as well as mentally, to be able for you to make sure that you are able to tackle this enormous activity that you're going to have over a number of weeks with all of these different papers. So make sure you hydrate. Try to avoid anything with caffeine in. So these energy drinks, you get a really high, but then you get a real low as well. And so you start to become dependent on them. Try and have something natural. Water is the best thing, in my opinion. Make sure you drink lots of water and celebrate your progresses. If you have been able to make some progress in some of your revision papers, for example, so your past papers, if you're starting to see that progress of your marks, give yourself a real pat on the back. Go and celebrate. Go and have a nice big chocolate cake or something like that to help you to celebrate with your friends. Fuel your brain with the correct foods. Um, you know, things like I remember when I was pregnant with my son, I used to crave fish, for weirdly, but all of that fish I've been told has really fueled his brain while we're growing, and we don't stop needing that. So things like omega-3 supplements, a real balanced diet, making sure that you have your vegetables and your fruit and vegetables as well, and lots of different variety of foods to make sure that you do get all of those vitamins so that you stay really healthy. Try and stop your negative thoughts in the tracks. It might be influenced by somebody else who has got a negative thought about their exams and about their own achievement. Try and make sure that you stick around these other people who have got the same positive mindset. Don't let other people's negative thoughts enter your thoughts. Count those sheep. Really make sure that you get a good sleep. If you need to, get some exercise before you go to bed to make you feel tired, just to clear your brain of everything that you've been trying to revise. But a good sleep is really important. Turn off all those devices, turn off the internet if you need to at a particular time of night. Have a wind down time before you actually go to bed and rest. Your brain and your body really, really needs it, because it's a bit like a mobile phone. If you don't charge it up to 100%, you only get a couple of hours worth of energy from it the following day. And so it runs out of juice, doesn't it? And don't be afraid to ask for help. It can be you have try it and get yourself a nice support group, or a study buddy. Or if you have a really good relationship with your teachers or a family member who understand what you're going through, then ask for help. There's nothing wrong in asking for help. It might be that they just finish off what you're trying to understand, and then suddenly, you have that light bulb moment. So please ask for help. And lean on your support network as well. Your schools, your colleges, they will all have their own support network. It might be that you can help somebody else as well, and you get a sense of self-worth as well if you help somebody else who is in the same kind of situation. So remember that you will have a support network within around you during this really stressful time, and it's important to use them. So what I'm going to go through now are some ideas of how you can change from a normal academic way of learning or for revision. Different types of learning can be really quite fun. And you might think that some of these are quite juvenile, but believe me, I've been in year 11 classes, and they've absolutely loved some of these ideas. So, for example, if you are learning something that is a sequence, and this is just an example of something that I had, pardon me, from primary school, but adapt it to anything that you need to. It might be something for geography, it might be something from history, it might be a science experiment, that kind of thing. But using it as a sequence, making sure that you have a printout of a sequence of the pictorial stages of the steps that you are going to make. You might want to create your own comic strips if you wanted to, if that helps you. But when you've done it, I want you to cut it up and move them around, and then talk through the sequences as you put them back together again. It's important to have that self-check. to make sure that you can find your own errors. So remember to have that as well to hand, but don't cheat. It's not a jigsaw, it's a way of learning the sequences, and it's not a silent activity. You need to talk it through, because if you connect what you are moving to what you are thinking to what you are saying, it's all these connections that make it multisensory. And that's, if you have made a mistake, then you'll be able to find it yourself with the self-check. And so sequencing, any kind of sequencing, cut it up, put it back together, make sure you see, find a self-check to find any errors, okay? Right, so this is a game that I created for one of my year 10s, and she was learning Macbeth, but of course, again, you can change this to anything at all. So this is a downloaded game platform, a board game platform from Twinkle. So it didn't cost me anything. And I created some revision cards into memory, reading, and spelling. And these are the three areas that are really most troublesome for some of our students. And the idea is to finish last, okay, and to collect as many coins as possible. And there were 2 levels for each one. So there's level 1 and level 2 for reading, writing, spelling, and memory. And the memory was things like who said this quote, or what was this quote in which act, which act and scene, that kind of thing. And you can use different types of coins. You can use different types of way of rewards. You could use matchsticks or something like that. 1 for 1 point question right, 2 for 2 point questions, and it's the one that collects the most and the last one to finish the game. And so the idea is to try and answer as many as possible. And of course, you can use these for anything. So if you have your own revision cards, you can use them for that. Or go to Quizlet and download some revision cards off there, maybe, or Kahoot. So all of these different things. And what you would do then is you include that short burst activity, those bite-sized activities with your fellow students. And what you can do is, if you don't know it, you can steal the question as well. And it's just that little bit something different for revision, isn't it? And this is another one that you can use for your revision cards. What I did with this is, these are some just single words that I wanted some of my year 7s to learn. But you can, again, you can change this to anything at all. So your revision cards, your answers will have a coordinate. So it's A to H and 1 to 6. And if you get that question right, you're able to put your counter down on that coordinate. And that's the first 1 to 4 in a row. And so this is just my own version of Connect 4 with those coordinates. And you might want to, put different levels of questions. You might have easy questions, hard questions. You might want to mix them all up. But again, you can use this for absolutely anything at all. And another one, Snakes and Ladders. It's so easy to download. This again was from Twinkle. You can adapt it. It might be that you want to, again, use your particular revision cards. And you can edit them as well if you needed to. You might want to have a killer question before the big snake at the top, before you win. If you answer it correctly, you don't have to go down the snake, that kind of thing. But imagine, if you teachers, if you had, tonight we're going to have a revision lesson. This afternoon we're going to have a revision lesson, and all you did was put the games out on the table with all of the different revision cards, and then after 10-15 minutes you just carousel around them. Your students are going to love you. They're going to think that they're playing games, but in actual fact, they are doing quite a lot of revision. And so things like this are easy way. It takes the stress away, it takes the boredom away, doesn't it? This is another game that I used to play. This is from Dyslexia Action. It's a game called Bang. And so your revision cards are placed face down with 7 bang cards as well. And if you turn over your revision card and you can read it out loud and answer it or solve the question, then you get to keep that question. And so over time, you know, everybody starts to collect the cards. But if you pick up a bang card, all the cards that you have collected have to go back into the pile face down again. So that's the overlearning. So somebody else has to pick it up and say, either, you know, tell you the answer to it. So it's that overlearning and it's that competitiveness. If you don't get the question right, you have to put it back in the pack. And so it's just these different little games that can really help take the edge off that revision. Follow me cards as well. These can be found on senteacher.org.uk. So this is edit these as well. So if you have, let's say, Spanish words that they need to be able to pronounce correctly that are particularly difficult, you could, you know, make these follow me cards and use them as a larger group or even a smaller group. There's lots of things on SEN Teacher. There's things like word scrambles, word bingo, word searches. There's lots and lots of things just to help. They're time fillers, aren't they? Just to keep that overlearning going. So this is a math sorting game. And one of my year 10s was particularly getting flummoxed with the functions of maths. I used to teach functional skills, certainly not the higher level of maths, but this was something that he was finding particularly difficult. And you might find some of your students who there's something in particular that's really tripping them up all of the time. And a sorting game, something like this, might be able to help them. Again, it's not a silent game. It's something that you need to verbalize to be able to make sense of and to put them into the right categories and then turn them over to see if they're correct. And so it just helps to make sense of things. Again, if they get it wrong, it's okay. Mix them up. Let's see if we can do it correctly the next time. Key rings can be really helpful to carry around with you. This one in particular, he was, again, remember, I was teaching functional skills and my student was finding it really difficult to remember what the word looked like to what the fraction looked like. And so this is what he carried around with him. But again, it could be around anything at all. So imagine if you have these sentence starters that you need for your particular subject. And so keeping them, you know, putting it in your pocket, carrying your knowledge around in your pocket. You sat waiting for, or stood waiting in the queue for dinner, get them out your pocket, just keep looking at them, reading them out loud, saying them out loud, connecting them to the next sentence, that kind of thing. It's just a time filler that you might only need 1 minute to do, but if you do it lots and lots and lots of times while you can, it just eventually, remember that learning curve, you'll remember them a lot easier but when it gets to the exam. So this is a good multi-sensory way of learning how to spell particular words. And this one is an example for GCSE science. And what I used was a scramble word activity, but I use Scrabble letters so that we have that additional multi-sensory way of moving these sounds around. And you can't see it on this letter, on this picture either, but some of the, you know, the two letters that make one sound in that phonemic makeup of the words, they were glued together so that they had an idea of which sounds go together. And so, but you can use wooden alphabet letters as well. You might want to put them on a tin tray with magnetic letters. Anything like that really would help with that would help with spelling any particular words that you know that your students are struggling with. So this is something that I've put in just as a bit of fun, really, and to give you that attachment to something that is tangible. So this example that I've used is a PEAS paragraph. So the point, evidence, explain, and zoom. And if you think about, you can't go outside without a t-shirt on, so you would have to wear a t-shirt first. So the red t-shirt would be the point, and then from the text, you could have the text on the board at the front. Somebody would put the red t-shirt on and tell everybody what the point is, you know, when you're answering that particular question. And then you can't have a point without the evidence. So you can't put your coat on without having the t-shirt on underneath, because that would just be silly. So the evidence, you would put a coat on and then find the evidence in the text. The green scarf can be the explanation. So you'd have to put the green scarf on. You can't put the green scarf on without the coat, and you can't put the coat on without the point, without the t-shirts. And so you would explain it. And then, to finish it all off, to get those extra points, you have to zoom in on one particular word and explain what that is. And that one might be a nice sparkly necklace or a tiara or something silly like that. And it's just to give them that pictorial, that image. When they are writing, when they do get to their exam, they have to think to themselves, I need a t-shirt, I need a coat, I need a scarf, and I need a necklace, something that sparkles, to help them to trigger what it is that they need to write and to structure their answers as well. And you can use this with colour coding as well, with just highlights. If they're too cool for school and they don't want to do something silly like this, then just use colour coding. It might be red, blue, green, and yellow. But honestly, some of your students would really like to get dressed up in a coat and scarf in the middle of the classroom. So that's just something just tangible to be able to hook onto their long-term memory, really. So the question techniques then. So what I've done with this is go through, and I haven't got a lot of time, so I apologise if it's not in too much detail. But the point I want to make you to understand is that if students can understand what the command words mean, it gives them a much better chance to answer the questions. Now, remember, for dyslexic learners, reading is something that is really exhausting for them and tiring. And if they have to try to decipher these really complex words sometimes, then it can, put them into such an exhaustion that they haven't got the energy to be able to write down. And so we need some background work doing. And this is a perfect time to be able to get the heads around these command words. So it might be that you pair up a word with a different word, so that when they come to a question, if they get the word analyze, they would cross that out and write the word inspect instead. Or you might want to give it a doodle of a magnifying glass or something, something similar to that will help them remember. If the word is annotate, for example, it might be that you cross that out and you write comment around, because if they then write that and then reread the question, they're much more likely then to be able to understand what it is that they've got to do. Assess, you might cross that out and write weigh up, calculate, work out, critically, write your opinions, and it goes on and on and on. So you can create all of these different words that they're able to understand in an exam situation. And what you can do to help them remember all of these are things like pairs games. So if you would turn over a word that has got analyze, what would you write on instead? And you have to find the word inspect and then pair it up. Annotate, well, that is instead of comment around, so you would pair that up. And it's just all of these different ideas to be able to get them to understand these command words and then be able to put them into the right context to answer the questions. Because if they can answer the questions, if they are more likely to be able to read the question, then they're more likely to be able to answer it correctly. What you don't want them to do is to read the question incorrectly and give a really wrong answer when you know that they know it. Okay. Okay, and these, I've not given you any alternatives for this, but you will get these, this is a PDF. So what you can do is you can describe or discuss with your students to put different words in instead of describe, instead of discuss, unless they know what it is, obviously. But if there are any of them that are really tricky, that is really tripping them up, then do something like that. It's really important, students, to read the instructions carefully. And I say that, but I've seen it done. And when it says answer one question from questions 1 to 7, this one is an example of English literature. And I've seen this before, and which is why I wanted to raise it. Make sure that you answer the correct questions. With English literature, they give you all of the questions in one paper, so you have to find the book that you have been studying. So if you find the one that you've been studying, highlight it. Make sure you take a note of the number and of the page number as well, and make sure that you go to that. When you get to your question, if you don't recognize the question, don't answer it. Okay. If you don't know, if you've not read A Christmas Carol and you don't know who the spirits are, don't try and answer that question. Obviously, because you've not read that book. I have seen it. It sounds really, really silly, but I have seen it, and somebody's, done the whole GCSE answers on a different book that they were studying. They might have read the book and understood it, but it's not something that they were studying for the last 12 months, for example. And so don't fall for that one. And also as well, I wanted to raise that if you have a reader or a scribe, it's your responsibility to make sure that they write down what you want them to write down. You can't rely on somebody else to make those decisions, like put across in the correct question for you. You need to double check with them what box they have marked. Make sure that if you're not sure about what it is that they've read, ask them as many times as you need to read that question for you, because that is what they're there for. So they can read what you ask them to read. So if you say, can you read the question again for me? They have to read the question again. If you have a scribe, you have to tell them what to write sentence by sentence. If they are not doing the punctuation for you, you need to tell them where to put your full stops and your exclamation marks, etc. Because if they do that for you, you're going to miss that chunk of points that are awarded for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So make sure that they write down what it is that you are telling them to write down, and that they read it out aloud so that you can hear your own answer to make sure that it sounds correct. Because remember, they are there. They have to do what you tell them to do, and that's why you have that extra time as well if you have a scribe or a reader. So just double check what it is that has been written down for you. During the exam practices, if you need to create that doodle to help you remember what it is that they've got to what you've got to do. So again, it's about reading the instructions carefully. If it asks you for 3 things, write 3 things down. If you know that observations, if it helps you to remember to draw a doodle of eyes, then do that, and then that will help you to remember that you have to look at something. It's something that you're observing. And of course, circle the how much the question is worth, so that when you are double checking and proofreading your work, then you can count the number of marks that you've possibly got. Hopefully you'll have time at the end of the exam. If you've managed your time well, you will have time then to be able to go and check your work, count the number of marks that you think that you're going to be able to be awarded for that. So in this extract, for example, the ghost of Christmas Past takes Scrooge back to school. And of course, everybody's going to have their own different books that they are studying. But the questions are in the same kind of format. So you will notice that there are 30 marks for this question. Okay. What we need to also notice is that there are 2 points. There are 2 halves to this. And so therefore there's 15 points each. Okay. Other things that we need to be aware of is that there's 2 parts to this question. The first one is going to be about this extract that you've been given to read, but the second part is about the novel as a whole. Okay. And so when you are reading these questions, if you highlight these parts to know how to structure your answer, then you're more likely then to be able to get a higher mark. It's the structure as well that you need to remember. Now remember, this is a 50-minute exam in this particular one from last year. So there's 25 minutes for the first half, 25 minutes for the second half, and remember to keep your eye on the clock. The whole thing is about loneliness. So that has got to be the theme that runs all the way through it. Now, I'm sure that you've been told all of these techniques anyway by your teachers. And it's not just about English literature, it's about all of your subjects, that you will all have these kind of ways to answer all of your questions. But it's important, especially for a dyslexic, to be able to understand how to structure, because if you just like open the doors and let you just free write, that structure isn't going to be there and you're going to lose marks. So it's important maybe to color code, to understand how these answers are structured to get those top marks. And so you might see something like this. Now, if a page is too daunting for you, if that full page is too much, fold it over or cover it up and just leave a few lines at the top so that you can only see that you've only got a little bit to fill. Because very often, if you see that full page, you're going to get this blank page syndrome and it's going to be a bit too overwhelming. And so it looks less scary if you either cover it up or you fold it if you need to. Use the margin to create a quick mind map. Okay, if something pops into your head, write a keyword, and when you've used it, cross it out so you know where you're up to. And so you might get something similar to this. So it might be the middle word, and this is going to be either on a piece of scrap paper or on the first page for your plan. And remember, you've only got a certain amount of time, so don't take a huge amount of time on your plan. Just a couple of minutes. So it's going to be a word, a keyword, just to remind you of what to write about. So use your margin or the first page to write down your keywords and remember to cross them out when you have used it. So this will be your particular plan, a very, very quick plan. And I'm looking at the time, so I'm going to try and speed up a little bit. Don't be a donut, check your answers, okay? It's important to have a little mini break. Keep your eye on the time. If you've got time at the end of the exam, or if you've got extra time because you've got a scribe or a reader, then just take a moment and think about something else. Come think about what you're going to have for your tea tonight or something. But then when you go back to checking your answers, check them from the back to the front. Okay, check your cover them up. Let's say you're doing a multi-choice paper. Do you get the same answers? Cover them up, ask themselves again, do you get the same answers? But do maybe page 1, then page 9, then page 6, then page 2. So do them out of order, because if you get back into the flow, you might start to not see any errors that you've already done. So remember to check your answers. And then hopefully you'll be ready. So have that positive mental attitude. If you have created these amazing revision techniques and you're feeling confident, you're going to be able to say to your GCSE exams, bring it on, I'm ready for you. Come and get me, because I'm going to do everything that I can to write down everything that's in my head. I'm going to write it down. It's that positive mental attitude that will really get you through right to the very end, because it is a long few weeks. So I'm going to try and speed up through this, how the BDA can help, because Nikki has done a fantastic introduction. We know that we have a fantastic website. If you need accessibility, then you can click on this icon here. We have lots of events and webinars. Our advisors are here on these times, but they are volunteers by experts in the field. So unfortunately, we're not open all of the time, but we do have the helpline and our social media platforms as well. So, Nikki, we've probably got just less than 10 minutes to be able to answer any questions. Have we got any tonight?
Yes, thanks for that, Amanda. That was great. A lot of people liking the games. They always like the games. And I know some people might think they're quite young, but actually we know that they work really well, depending on what the questions are. Obviously, we know they work really well for older kids too, which is fantastic. We do have just a couple of questions, but if anyone thinks of something, wants to quickly pop something in, then we can try and answer them. So we've got somebody asking, can you explain more about how a scribe works? Do they write down exactly what a child says, or how does that whole process work? I know that's quite new to some people.
Yeah, so having a scribe is a skill in itself. It's about, imagine if I was asking you to write down something word for word, it does take a lot of time. And you need to remember that that is what they are there for. They are not there to have a conversation. They're not there to to be a buddy, because it's an exam. They're there to write down exactly what that person wants them to write. Even if they know themselves, and it's really hard because I've been in that position, if they know that they're writing the wrong answer, they still have to write what it is that they tell them to write down. And it can be really, really tricky for the scribe. But remember that all of the punctuation, spelling, punctuation, and grammar is done by the learner. In my situations, the student that I was supporting was unable to do the spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and so I ticked a box to say that the scribe had done it. And unfortunately, those points are awarded for the spelling, punctuation, and grammar. They were not able to have, because they knew that I'd declared that I had done it. So there's two different ways. So you can either make sure you do it yourself to gain those points for the exam, or if the scribe does it, you're understanding that you're going to forego those points that are awarded in that exam. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, great, thank you. And at what point, because I know we also get asked as well, but at what point do they need to get these access arrangements sorted out? Because it's too late at the point of the exam, right? They need to
Yeah,
be.
so ideally at the beginning of year 10, really, that is the best way to be assessed, at least for access arrangements, because we need a good, I would say probably 4 or 5 months before the exam, if not more than that, really, to get into that normal way of working. So any kind of access arrangements need to be put into place well in advance of the exam. It's unfair, really, on both the student and the scribe or the reader if they're not used to each other. If you don't understand how each other works, because it might jeopardise the scores that they might be entitled to.
Great, thank you. Got people asking about revision plans. Do you know if there are any like good templates out there that people are, is it best to design your own? Was that, how should they go about doing a good revision plan?
It's all about the individual, really. There are some really good digital plans that you might want to create. Or it might be that you prefer a wall planner, so you can see visually what it is, how much revision you're doing. What I forgot to mention is once you've done that bit of revision, cross it off so you can see where you're up to. It's important to do that. Or it might be that some prefer to use their own planner that they have at school. It's all on an individual basis, really. So that's what I can say. One size will not fit all, really.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I did like the highlighting techniques with the different subjects and that, because it must just absorb in a different way.
Yeah.
A few questions coming up now about access arrangements, which I'm not surprised at all. But if somebody hasn't got those sorted out, and is it best that they contact the Senko at the school and find out what has been done or not been done?
Yeah, I'd do it as soon as possible, really. Things like the access arrangements, they have a particular time, and it's normally February when the closing date is up to put in for access arrangements. However, there is, if somebody breaks their arm the week before, for example, they have to put emergency arrangements in, and so it might be something like that they might be able to talk to the Senko about last minute access arrangements. Things like a computer reader, for example. If you need a computer reader, you need to make sure that all of that infrastructure, that software, is available to everybody as early as possible, really. Before that, it might be that I know from the, remember we were at the dyslexia show a couple of weeks ago. I met somebody who was doing the what's it called now? Sensory readable. So having like a software like that within, on the correct laptops for the individual. Or it might be that there's something called a Lily lamp that I've found at the dyslexia show as well. And what that can do is it's like a bit of a strobe light, and if you need to make sure that those settings are right before you go into the exam, that kind of thing. So it's just making sure that all of these access arrangements, whatever it might be, are in place so that the student has got time to practice. It's that practice time, making sure that they know how to use that in an exam situation.
Yeah, and it's like you said before, you don't want to go into that not having ever worked with a scribe or never used a pen before or anything, because it's you need to not worry about that side of things when you're going into an
Yeah,
exam, right?
yeah.
Got a great question here. My son is in year 10 and has access to a scribe or can use his laptop.
Hmm.
Would you have a recommendation if one over the other if he's poor at SPAG? Because
Um,
there's a grading, isn't there, with the SPAG?
yeah, there is. It depends on him really. If he's more comfortable using his keyboard skills, then get him to use that. There's something called touch type read and spell, and it does that. It helps you to touch right, but it also helps you to read and to spell as well, using the movement of your fingers on how to spell. So you could, you've got plenty of time now to be able to get that into into place. However, if he's much more verbally knowledgeable, it might be better for him to just voice his knowledge so that somebody else can write it down for him. So it's entirely up to him, really, which is best for him.
Brilliant, thank you. You mentioned about highlighting or settling on exam paper, and a couple of people asking about, are you actually allowed to highlight in an exam paper?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're allowed to do that.
You're allowed to take in a pencil case, a clear pencil case, with all of your pens in. Very often you're given a black, so you can only write in a black or a blue pen onto your exam paper. But if for example English literature, you're given a text and you can highlight all of the different parts of the text that you want to include in your writing, in your answers. So yeah, taking 3 or 4 different highlighters if you need to.
Brilliant, thank you. And we are actually, the questions started coming flooding in then, but we are actually out of time. So thank you so much, Amanda. But I would just say for all those others, if your question hadn't been answered, that's exactly what Amanda was saying with our helpline. You can email the helpline if you don't have time to sit on the phone, or if you want to chat to them just to talk through particular issues you might have or access arrangement things or questions. They are experts, so do just drop them an email or just pick up the phone and have a chat with them, because there's lots of individual questions coming up about their particular son or daughter and how they navigate through that. So do use the helpline, that's what it's there for. And just a reminder quickly before you all go that we do lots of webinars like this. They are all free, and all you have to do is register like you did tonight, and right from early years right up to adults in the workplace and employers. So do take a look. We're adding them all the time, so do take a look on the website. You'll also be able to find lots of other webinars on our YouTube channel, so take a look on there if you're looking for ideas. There's other tips about if you're struggling with maths or spellings. There's lots of other things on there as well, so do take a look. And just a massive thank you to our sponsors again tonight for the Dyslexia Shop. And as I said, I'll be sending out information afterwards if you want to have a look at the resources and that they supply. And then just a huge thank you to Amanda for her time tonight, and for Claudia and the events team who's in the background sorting everybody out and helping with all the sound issues and things like that. So thank you both, and thank you everyone for joining us, and we do hope we see you on another webinar soon, and we'll let you enjoy your evening now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye.